Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to cut and sew a version of the Harem trousers. I think that's the name. This trouser sort of design I saw on a Netflix show I'm currently watching. It's a Nigerian show called Sons of Caliphate. I think that's what it's called. One of the actresses wore it in I think episode 4 or 5, and I just thought it looked really cool. This is a silhouette I would normally never wear because I don't like to wear baggy things around my body, lower body region, but because of the way the waistband is designed, it actually works and complements like the different parts of the trouser. I worked it from my pair of jeans as sort of the starting point, but if you have your basic trouser block, you can start from that one as well. If you enjoyed, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't joined the DIY fam already. I'll be using the following materials to make this trouser. The fabric I'm working with is this khaki green and mustard print. I got 3 meters but ended up using about 2 meters to sew this trouser. I also got myself some matching thread, my scissors, as well as a short zip to go on the side seam of the trouser. I have my paper and fabric scissors as well as my marker pen, my pins, as well as my pattern master. I have my tape to take down measurements. I have my roll of pattern paper and a long ruler. All of these things are linked in the description down below. You will need to take the following measurements: your waist, around your lower belly, the desired length of the trouser, and around the hem as well, just to ensure you have an outcome that you're happy with. I'm going to be using my favorite pair of jeans to sort of trace out the front and back shape of the trouser. I have folded the trouser in such a way that I get only the front, and I'm just tracing around that front crouch line, around the waist, around the side, and the hem as well. This is going to be the base that we're going to be changing up to create the trouser pattern. So I just connected those dash lines so I have my full front shape here like so, and I'm going down to mark my hip line, which is 10 inches from my waist downwards. I'm also going to double check that I'm happy with the length of the trouser, and this is the point where you can make it shorter or longer if you want to. Next up, I'm going to be shaping my waistband because I want the waistband to be a separate panel attached to the trouser. The front is 5 inches deep from the waist and is 4 inches deep from the sides because I want it to just curve slightly from the center front to the side. I'm also going ahead to ensure that the waistline corresponds with my waist measurement. My waist measurement at the moment is 28 inches, and if you divide that by 4, that gives you 7. So I'm just connecting points together so I have my waistband piece ready to be cut out and used later on in this video. So now that we have the shape of the waist plan in place, ensure that the waist measurement, so your waistline and that underbelly, actually fit you, because if this is not correct, you won't be able to put the trouser on. So I'm just going ahead to write down annotations that this is the front, and I'm going to create notches on the waistline and on that underbelly area, which would help us connect the pieces together later on when we are sewing. So I'm just going now to cut out the waistband pattern like so. Once that is done, I am going to go ahead and place the rest of the front trouser onto fresh pattern paper and then adjust the hemline to a width that I am happy with. I ended up adding 1 inch to both sides of the hem, and this is sort of the shape that the front is going to have. Aside from adding 1 inch to both sides of your trouser hem edge, you would need to extend that center front edge by 9.5 inches. You would need to extend the hip point by 3.5 inches, and you need to raise and shift that waistline edge sort of towards the bottom of the screen or towards like the front of the pattern by 3 to 5 inches. Just know that the more you raise that waistline and shift it outwards, the wider that waist is going to be and the more drape you're going to have along the bottom or that mid region of the trouser. So this pattern allows you to be creative. You don't have to exactly follow the way I have draped. You can decide to even drop the crouch line even lower to make that mid region even looser if you wanted to. So I extended that front edge, which is where your front curve is, by 9.5 inches, and I extended the side around the hip by 3.5 inches, and I raised the waistline, which is going to allow that front crouch to drape even nicer when you have it on. So when I do the back, I would explain this even in more detail so it makes a whole lot more sense, but it's one of those patterns that gives you the freedom to be as experimental as possible. I'm just going in to add a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around, so this allows me to cut out this pattern and cut out the fabric that I can connect to the back pieces. I'm just going in to add my grain line and I'm cutting out my front pattern. So for the front, you're going to end up with your front trouser piece and your front waistband. For the waistband, I placed it over pattern paper and added a 1 centimeter seam allowance along the waist, the side, and the hem. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead to work on the back, and we're going in the same order in which you worked in the front. So we're tracing off the back from my favorite pair of jeans, the crouch, side, hem, and then connect those dash lines together so we have this back shape ready to work with. So now I'm going to go ahead and draw in my back waistband, which is 5 inches deep on the back and 4 inches deep on the side, and so everything fits and works together. I'm cross-checking that the width of my front waistband works with the width of my back waistband. I'm also going in to ensure that the waistline is actually to my measurement, and for the back I found that I needed to add to the waistline and then connect that back to the bottom of the waistband in such a way that I have my back waistband piece ready to be cut out. Don't forget to add your notches, and then once you cut out this piece, the rest of that back pattern you would tape onto fresh pattern paper like this and draw in a shape that is pretty similar to the front. So for the changes that you make, these are them listed on the left hand of the screen. You need to make the hem wider by 1 inch on both sides, extend the center back by 9.5 inches downwards like so, or sideways, extend that hip by 3.5, and then you raise that waistline by about 3 to 5 inches. The higher you raise the waistline, the more that crouch is going to deep even lower, because by the time you attach that waistline back onto your waistband, that measurement that you added on top is going to be forced to go downwards. So this is our back piece here. If you want to ensure that everything fits, I suggest that you sort of layer your front pattern over this to check that the shape, especially for that middle region, they fit and they connect in a way that is complementary to each other. Just remember for your back to add your seam allowance and to add your notches. For the back, you want to add 2 notches so you know what piece is your front and what piece is your back. For your back waistband, remember to add your 1 centimeter seam allowance all around except on your center back. And remember to add your hem allowance. For mine, I worked with 1.5 centimeters. You can decide to work with more depending on what you're comfortable with. So with that, all of the patterns are ready, and I'm going ahead to cut out onto my fabric. You will need to cut 2 pieces for the legs, so one goes on the right and one goes on the left hand side. You need to do this for your front and for your back. You also need to cut your waistband pieces, and you would end up with a pair each for your waistband. So I have my main trouser pieces here, my front and my back, 2 of each, and then for my waistband I decided to cut a pair of the front and a pair of the back because I want to have a facing that we would use to finish off the waistline and the zip edge of the trouser. It's time to sew, and the first thing we'll be doing is we'll be placing right sides together of the front to the back. You need to do this for the left and the right leg, and you need to sort of pin together that inner and outer leg. So you sew up the inner and outer seam of your trousers. So you connect left front and back together and right front and back together, putting right sides in place. So I'm sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance because that's how much seam allowance I added to my pattern. I'm just using a normal straight stitch, turning at necessary points, remembering to do my back stitch at the beginning and at the end of my seam. So once you do that, I'm going to go in to overlock my seam because I'm not going to be lining this trouser. I want my seams to look even good on the inside. So once we've joined our left and right legs, it's time to connect them together along that sort of crouch line, which goes from the front all the way to the back. So I'm starting from that middle point there, which is where like your inner seam is, and I'm going to pin along that full crouch line. You can decide to just have 3 pins, one at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end. You can decide to add notches to make your life a whole lot easier, and then you sew up this crouch line on a 1 centimeter seam allowance. So this connects the right side to the left side, and you have like a full trouser ready to be attached to the waistband. So once that is done, you can go ahead and overlock the seam. So this secures it and holds everything intact, even on the inside of your garment. After this point, you can go ahead and work on your waistbands. I've already fused some interfacing on the wrong side of my fabric. I've annotated what's front and what's back so I don't get confused. And you should have 2 sets. So one's going to be on the outside and one's going to be on the inside. So I am joining up one side only. I'm joining up the left side because I want my zip to be on the right side of the garment. To gather the waistline of the trouser into the waistband, you would need to sew a loose stitch, which you would pull to create your gathers. And don't forget to unpick one side, which your zip is going to be, and that side should correspond to the open side of your waistband. So once you've gathered that waistline by pulling one of your threads, you can go ahead and pin one set of your waistband starting from that side that is closed. Pin it all the way around, and you would need to join the waistband to the gathered edge of the trouser. So I'm just going to take this in my machine and I'm going to be connecting that point from one end all the way to the other, and I'm sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, making my way from the beginning to the end. After this, you have the freedom to go back and remove that stitch that allowed you to create the gathers, or you can stitch in such a way that it's sort of tucked in inside the seam. So once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and attach my zip. I'm fixing the zip on the open side of the waistband. I already unpicked that side of the side seam where I want my zip to be. I unpicked it a little bit down, so the zip sits from the waistband into the side seam of the trouser on this particular side. Whenever you unpick a seam, remember to go back and do a back stitch so it doesn't unravel. I've pinned my zip in place. I've pinned corresponding zip tapes to zip ends, and using a zip footer, I am sewing my zip into the side seam of the trouser. You need to do this for the left and for the right hand side. So with that, this is what the zip should look like. I have a way more detailed tutorial showing how to fix zips. I'm going to link that down below if you want to see how that works. So once that is done, you can go ahead and grab your other sets of waistband, and this is what we're going to be using to finish off the waistline of the trouser. So I'm pinning that top waist edge and side area, or like zip edge, in place, and we're going to be sewing with one continuous stitch from that edge of the zip tape. We're going to turn towards the waistband, leaving our needle in place, and we're going to sew from this point all the way around till we arrive at the other side of the sort of like zip area. Make your way down like so, and you sew until you reach the bottom of the facing like this. For the zip, you need to trim that zip thread edge on the inside. You turn this inside out. You can do an edge stitch to sort of secure your facing in place on the inside, and then I'm just going in to overlock the bottom of my facing, which is on the inside of my trouser, and I'm just overlocking it so it looks tidy even when we have this trouser on. So this is what the trouser waistband is looking like at the moment. At this point, you can either decide to hand stitch the facing to the waistline of the trouser, or you can just do tiny stitches like I'm doing. You can do one on the side seam, one on the center back, one on the center front, and this would sort of keep your waistband held inside. The last thing you need to do is you need to overlock the hem of your trouser. Do this for the left and for the right hand side, and then you will need to fold this over and sew on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, finishing off the trouser. So this is what the finished product looks like. It actually looks really, really cool. This would look really nice with a crop top as well in the summer with a pair of sandals. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Comment your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions down below, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.